In fact, I had got stuck in a traffic jam. I was worried that minister should not come. It must be my prayers that he has not joined yet.
Absolutely.
Good morning, Chairperson, Madam.
Good morning.
Sorry.
Good morning, Mr. Chatterjee.
Good morning, Dr. Singh.
Good
morning, Rudra.
Good morning, Vijay. Congratulations on your first event.
Thank you.
Good morning.
You been there?
Hello. Audible?
Sorry, Vikash, I couldn't hear you.
Rudra, you being there, it's a great support.
Absolutely, always.
That.
Thank you.
Good morning, Rudra. Good to see you.
Hi, Kanishka. How are you?
Good.
Mr. Vikash Agarwal, President of ICC, to please start the session. Over to you. I would request everybody to please go on mute. Paramita, please request everybody to go on mute.
Sure. Yeah.
Mr. Agarwal, over to you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure and honor to welcome you all here today. On behalf of Indian Chamber of Commerce, I would like to welcome General V.K. Singh, for Road Transport Highways, Government of India. I'm also grateful for the august presence of Dr. Anita Prasad, Chairperson, Authority of India, and other distinguished guests and dignitaries. COVID-19 pandemic has ravaged the Indian economy, but our Prime Minister is optimistic about India becoming a $5 trillion economy by 2025. Modi, the country has witnessed its best phase for macroeconomic stability, from ranking 11th in the world in 2013-14 to becoming the 6th largest economy globally. To achieve the target of becoming a $5 trillion economy, government spending has to be increased. And since government is the single largest consumer, it will have to spend more, especially during the pandemic when public spend. Transportation plays a very important role in overall economic growth of the country. And Union government's decision to roll out a national multimodal transportation plan will not only spur of business in the logistics sector, which is a key enabler in making Indian industry competitive. With India's transformation to Atmanirbhar Bharat, a conducive logistic ecosystem, investments. The government has already begun taking initiatives in this regard. For example, the Sabarmati terminal in Ahmedabad will be the only one to have a multimodal to bus transit points, Indian Railways, and the metro station as well. Jawaharlal Nehru Port Trust has completed the construction of a dedicated berth for coastal shipping. The growing containerization and expansion in the economic industry, in the e-commerce industry, requires the multimodal transport. Total connectivity, various modes in lesser cost, and a short span of time alone can increase the competitiveness of Indian industry. Finally, of COVID-19 vaccine in a tropical country like ours. While India has a huge cold storage network, across the country will be imperative for its storage and a seamless distribution nationwide. Thank you.
Do we request Dr. Prashad now to please address us? Dr. Prashad.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, sir, Honorable Minister, the President of ICC and Chairman of Export Council. I have a small presentation so that everybody pays attention to what I'm saying. If the presentation can be shared, I will be. That will be nice. We have already sent the.
Sure.
As the presentation gets ready, I would like to first thank ICC, with whom we work a lot in enhancing our trade and enhancing our connectivity and uses of waterways. Today's topic is very important about the multimodal logistic bridging IWT connectivity. Why it is important? Because we have we have almost 5,500 square kilometers of riverways, which is in north and south both. If we have to connect the entire waterway, that is almost 14,000 kilometers, about 111 waterways. But the important ones are basically in the north, which is the Ganga, Brahmaputra, and Indo-Bangladesh waterways. So when we look at it, what are the issues here? One is that waterways is cheaper. Everybody knows here. I need not say that. It is more efficient and it is green also. So that is one why it is required. If we go to the next one, the use in the country is much less. If we look the next slide, please. If we look at the waterways availability and the percentage of a logistic model in this, we find that over the world it is over the world it is more than 7 to 14% in China also, but we are not able to utilize so much. This map gives a picture of the running waterways, which you can see in the blue here. And out of 111 national waterways, 23 we have picked up for development. And if you can see further, that 73.6 million traffic happened in 1920, which is 2.4 times since 2015. But that is one reason is also there that earlier we were only 5 waterways, now we are 111. So we have captured the data of Maharashtra and Goa and Gujarat also in this. So because of that, our share has also gone up. Currently, we are only having 2%. Ideally, we should have been 5% of the total logistic transfer here, but we are only 2%. Our target and our maritime vision, we talk about it to make it 5% of the total modal share in the country. And by 2030, we project 140 million ton, which is almost double. And this is possible if we are able to utilize the routes. Next slide, please. Then when we are looking at it, we are making certain intervention, which I was talking about before we start the meeting. One is a fairway development. River is a being, it's not like a road, it's a living thing. So we have to keep developing. And in the north, the rivers which are going to be used, both Ganga, Brahmaputra, Barak River, and also the river systems of Bangladesh by which we connect 2 and 1. So fairway development is required. Then navigational aid, because like on the roads we put, similarly we put some night system, Sunday system, river information system. Then terminal development. At present we have 45 terminals in the entire country, which includes the floating jetties and others. I have not included the private jetties in this. There are about 10 to 12 of them also. But there are 3 important multimodal terminals which have come up now: Varanasi, Sahabganj, and Haldia. Haldia is likely to be inaugurated soon. So these are the 3 multimodal in which evacuation through coastal and ship route is also there. And then with rail and road connectivity to the terminals have also been planned. In Assam side, in the northeast side, Pandu is one which we are multi-modal. And the other one, with the help of MORTH only, we are trying to develop a Jogi Gopa, for which their northeastern wing is trying to do. So terminal development is important, and not only important, we are also trying to give it to the private sector for maintenance. We have already put that tender. I'll request all of you to kindly have a look at that tender and participate also for Varanasi. We are looking for more number of people. Similarly, the riverine, other riverine structures, as you all are aware that rivers require a lot of bandaling and then the flood management and other thing. The one thing we are lacking in our country, and especially in the river port, it is the vessel operation. I was reading an old book recently written by some ICS officer who was in charge of IWT sector in West Bengal and Assam, and he has said that in 1956 there were more than 1,100 vessels available in the water in this area, and CIWTC was maintaining. After that, if you look at it now, there are only 20 vessels which are both for the river system, which is a very small number. And nothing can happen if the vessels are not there. So my one intervention which is needed is this. Recently, we purchased 10 Ro-Ro vessels which can carry passengers and vessels and cargo, and we have given 4 of them in Assam. 2 we are going to give to Jharkhand, 2 to Patna, and 2 we have already given to Cochin, and 2 we are going to give it to Varanasi. So what I'm trying to say that the vessel is one important aspect where we are running short of. So these are the key interventions. Next, please. And then when we are looking at it, I would like to, the next slide is important from the point of view of, I'll request to go for the, skip the next one and go to the next one. That is a 5-year vision which we are talking about. We are talking about promotion and facilitating of the movement, which I was talking about. While we were discussing, there are certain old ports which can develop, which are on the Indo-Bangladesh protocol route, and you all need to take advantage of that. These are the strategies which we are saying about the challenges also. Some of the challenges, since the slide has come, I'll just like to say, one is the lack of awareness. I am here for last 1.5 years now, and I feel that the awareness of our waterways is not there at all. We have made it totally free. You don't have to pay anything except for the charges of the terminal, which the private party or whoever is running will be taking. But other water charges, we have made it totally free for next 3 years. Similarly, there are other advantages, but then people are either not aware, or even if they are aware, they don't want to use it because they will say there is a cost and there is a time because of the logistics. My take on this is the 5-year vision, which has just come on the screen now. If you look at it, one is a modal share enhancement, which I already spoken about. So for this, integration of rail and road is very much required. The new logistic policy of Government of India, of DPIIT, also talks about this. And wherever there is a lesser connectivity with the jetties and all, that can be doing it. In fact, yesterday only we were discussing, as I already told you, that Indo-Bangladesh protocol route is very important. There are 13 ports of call on both sides. So 13 on Indian side and 13 on Bangladesh side. All 13 Indian side have been custom notified. And my request to all of you will be get as much as information. It is available on our net also. Kindly look at it and try to integrate. I always say, people ask me, how do you rate Indian Waterways? I say we are not allopathic medicine, we are homeopathic medicine. We are not the alternate, we are the supportive. So I would never say that waterways can be an alternate mode. It can be a supportive mode, and let us look at it from that point of view. Some of the other vision which we have put it there, it is that coastal shipping and other models we will like to add it. Target passenger and cruise movement. You all will be happy to know that cruise and passenger movement, especially with the urban water transport. See, the thing is that when we look at water sector, we only look at it from the point of view of economic rate of return, or we look at it internal rate of return, but there is something called development model also. Waterways, if we are not computing the green part of it, if you compute the green part and the environmental advantages of it, I'm sure we will be much cheaper. But then in our country, we do not look at the nature and we do not compute nature into our business models. UK does it, not US, UK does it. Similarly, we are also looking at certain e-initiative, which I'll just touch upon because time is not so much. So these are some of the strategies which we have put it for ourselves, and I'm sure things will move. The next is a slide I want you to see how we are planning to integrate. These are some of the regions you can see. Bangladesh, we have shown in the red dots, which are the port of calls. Then we have green, which are the port of call for the Indian side. And then you can see the 3 terminals, Varanasi, Sahabganj, and Haldia. And from in the north, you can see Pandu, Jogigopa, and others. And Karimganj also you can see. So what I'm trying to say, this integrated part where this group is working, ICC is working, is very important, that you look at it and you demand that, okay, you have a jetty, but you don't have a road. Ultimately, we will be also forced to look at it. The public policy makers will be forced to do it. In fact, when I had a meeting in Niti Aayog, I said there is no transport policy in our entire country. We have a road policy, we have a logistic policy, but we do not have a integrated policy where road, jetties, all are connected. We did so much of road for rural India. Where are the jetties? Why they were not connected? We are connected the markets, but where are the, the multimodal terminals? Why they are not being connected? So these are the policy changes. We like to do it. Here I'm just trying to say that these are the private players. I've already said that we are going to give it to private people who will be running it, and I hope they will bring better management practices and they will do a better job. We had put in the 2 slides, which I don't want to show it, but they were how coal and steel can make a mark, and you all can use it for coal and steel. When there was a COVID and everything was closed, we moved a lot of steel on this route from GR Jetty of Kolkata and they took almost 5 days. If we give a night navigation, it can reduce the time by 1.5 days further. We are looking at it, and in the Sundarban area, we are trying to put river navigation system. We are also putting a Hemnagar, we are putting a custom office so that it will be easy. Now, this is the coal transit. This is just a visual thinking. I have written to coal secretary also saying that please move at least some percentage of your coal, and he has fixed up a meeting today afternoon to work out on this. I am only requesting move a percentage of your thing on this route, and I'm sure you will see. And as we were interacting in the morning, some of you said that you are very used to this and you all were using it. I'm sure my only request is look at the water sector as a supplementary mode. I am not looking at the 65% of the road sector or the rail, which is 31%. I'm looking at my tiny 5 to 10%, which can very well happen. So this is the steel, which you can work it out and you can have a look at it. My last point, I'll just like to talk about one or two things. One is the e-initiative, which you are doing. If you can move one or two slides further. So these are the two things. This is just the export ideas I have shown you. I'm sure all of you are business people. You will look for your advantage. Look at our advantage also. I'll look at it. Even if you are one day late, nothing happens. We are also trying to work out in the system about the Bangladesh coming up with more Pangaon and other transshipment facilities. We are working out on that. We have a very active High Commissioner in Bangladesh, and I'm sure we will be able to iron out this difference. This is my last slide of the presentation, last but one. And here we are just showing you these are the ease of doing business which we want Honorable Prime Minister to launch, though everything is ready. One is on the, you can see one is Pani, which will give all information about the river system. How much is the depth, how much is the systems can give you. It will be on mobile. It is going to be on the Play Store within next 1 week time. It is already audited. What we are expecting from you all, I'm only saying take advantage of this and shift our share of cargo and future-proof strategy. It can only happen with your this thing. I'm here from the policymaker side, from the government side, to give whatever you all demand. So be frank and forthright in demanding what you want for this sector to grow. Thank you very much for inviting me here. And these are the services sector, and these are the services we provide, and these are the contact details of the people whom you all can get in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Prasad.
Sorry, go ahead. Dr. Singh, please go ahead.
Okay. It's my pleasure now to request General VK Singh. Sir, people from Calcutta always have a special regard and affection for you, and it is an honor to interact with you. And we now look forward to your address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Rajiv. All our distinguished guests, all heads of various participating ministries who have come here, and of course the Indian Chamber of Commerce, which Rajiv very ably represents. And through him, I'll say, Shubhaya Kolkata Vashi ke Shubhkamna. It is a very interesting topic that we have you have put up, because this is the need of the day. It has been need of the day for a very long time. I think a time has come when, after 2014, much more attention has been given to this subject, because this is an area which will make a significant difference to the economy and the growth. Now, when we look at what has gone down in the whole of 2020, it has seen a very dramatic phase of downfall as the pandemic effect grew. And one thing which stands out from this year is that there is one sector which has led the global businesses from the front, has been transportation and logistics. Whether it was transportation by any means, whether it was transporting medicines, whether it was transporting essentials, whether it was transporting things required for the for fighting the pandemic and evacuation of people. But this sector has actually shown a great resilience during this period. And in India, this is one sector which has immediately, as the things opened up after lockdown, has also shown a suitable growth which nobody was expecting. And you are aware that we started with transporting essential commodities, and I'm including all means of transportation in this, uh, and all ministries who are part of it. The logistics cells that were made to coordinate this, they ensure that essentials reached. And after the essentials had gone, they looked at non-essential supplies, but which were otherwise needed. And we overcame various problems, whether it was the problem of drivers in the road sector, whether it was problem of how to manage the COVID protocols. But this transportation logistics sector has shown a great amount of it's not just resilience, but has also withstood all the pressure that came on it. Now, my feeling is that logistics always, and the sound supply chain system or the ecosystem that is built for it, is the backbone of any economy. And the sizable proportion of national exchequer is dedicated towards development of and timely augmentation of this. If you look back in time, the Great Depression of 1930s in the USA, it was the road infrastructure sector that was given due attention, which ensured that the economy kept running, because it entailed cement industry, it entailed steel, it entailed vehicles required for construction, it entailed manpower, and all this led to a growth in economy. In India, our major dependence has so far been on the road sector. This is something which we need to take note of, as to why it is the road sector which has which has taken so much of dependence. And especially when I look at the east, you take over a period of time. We had meter gauge lines. Slowly they have been upgraded. Even upgradation has taken time. You had limited capacities by which transportation could be done. We never exploited fully the waterways. Inland water transport, I remember, they did a human service during 1971 war. After that, somehow, when this lesson should have been, enough for us to progress on this front, we didn't. We just, it just quietened down. And it is now that we are saying, okay, the national waterway so-and-so, national waterway so-and-so, we will develop this, and certain development has taken place. Today, it is possible to take haul goods and other things from Varanasi to Haldia, and from Haldia, you take the Bangladesh Trade Protocol route, and you can reach Guwahati in a cheaper mode, because when you compare the various modes of transportation, road is the costliest. In fact, road is almost 30% costly than all others, plus the pollution that is involved. So there is a need to look at how we create facilities which will take into account the various modes and combine them and create hubs which will help in multimodal logistics. The first one you are aware is coming up in Jogigopa. What we are looking at it is a PPP with a state special purpose vehicle involved in it. So the initial facilities, the shell, the main foundation will come with the cooperation of the center and the state. Rest, as it goes by, the other private players will plug in, because without private players, things will not work. The whether it is air, whether it is rail, whether it is road. And it is these multimodal hubs, 35 have been planned. It is these multimodal hubs which will ensure seamless conveyance of various things that go to various areas. Thing comes by rail, there should be facilities to immediately put this onto the waterways. Various sizes of that is existing, whether it is a RoRo system, whether how exactly. See, main criticality in all this is not what we are discussing in terms of each transportation. Criticality is how do you combine all of them? Each, sorry to say that, but I think each mode of transportation has its own ego factor. How do you bring out that ego factor and combine them? How do you ensure that it becomes totally seamless? How do you ensure that minimum time is taken? How do you ensure that the permission regime that we have created is so easy that a person finds it easier to utilize these hubs? Otherwise, they will never get utilized. So, great amount of work is also required in this sphere where the modalities are concerned, where the uh, permission regimes are concerned, where the rules are concerned, where the customs are concerned. All these have to be combined in a manner that it is absolutely seamless. It is not that, okay, I'm customs, so I can delay as much as I want to. Sorry, I'm railways. My procedures say I can only give it to you after 12 hours. It won't work. It just won't work. So what I'm trying to put across is that it's a beginning. And as Dr. Anita brought out, a great amount is needed to ensure that these waterways are taken care of. It is not just that you say, okay, we can go along the Brahmaputra. You don't remove the sandbars, the way whatever you are shipping is going to get stuck. And you've got to create an environment which is friendly to transportation through waterways. Otherwise, you have a problem. It is not that it is something new that is happening. This used to be the ancient system, and if you go back centuries, you will find things got unloaded from the big boats that used to go on. They got loaded onto bullock carts, and they went further to wherever they were required to go. Today, you've got other means available, and if we combine them systematically, if we ensure that whatever is there which is absolutely seamless and without glitches, I think this is going to pay us great dividends. Of course, the eastern part of the country has got great potential. You have got two major waterways that have been declared. Brahmaputra itself is a lifeline, and then when Brahmaputra enters Bangladesh, you have a trade protocol route. I'm sure if we combine with Bangladesh and this whole of eastern part, it can be a game changer. It can be a game changer in terms of how you utilize your things, how you are able to export things out. How one of the biggest problems of our Northeast has been how do you extricate things? You can grow as much pineapple as you want to, but if you don't extricate in time, it is only going to rot. Uh, there is a great amount of organic food that is being grown there. How do you extricate it? Road sector works out to be costly. Then these are the details that need to be worked out so that we are able to handle them carefully. One of the major issues that always comes up is budget. I think to that extent, I will uh, like to quote my minister Gadkari ji, who is very innovative. Whenever people have asked him, sir, the budget for the road sector is so much, he says, don't worry about the budget. We are looking at the PPP, we are looking at BOT, we are looking at all kinds of measures to ensure that the money is available to take the map that you have made in ensuring your economic corridors, your port connectivity, your coastal trade, everything prospers. Now, we need to come up with these innovative solutions so that it is not just the exchequer's money that is going to help. We need to involve the private sector. We need to involve private parties who will have an equal stake in it in ensuring that the development takes place in the manner that we want to. A good thing is that there is a logistics cell that has been created where all concerned ministries can pitch in under the Ministry of Commerce. My observation in all this is most of the time we land up creating rules which are difficult to interpret, which have very good language, but when it takes implementation, implementation becomes difficult. I think what we need to do is things must be simplified for people. People who are going to use these means need simple instructions, simple rules, a very rapid system of ensuring that the permissions are granted in quick time, and everything need to be online with deemed time intervals. Okay, if somebody has slipped on not looking at the mail system, it should be deemed that in 3 days' time all permissions are there. No, you've got to change the system if you want to compete in this very aggressive and competitive economic module. And if I can say that the MMPs at Chennai and Nagpur are also at advanced stage of implementation. I think as these get ready, as we ensure that they get ready faster, you will find that once we start using it, those initial issues that come will require rectification so that we are able to put in our best and to ensure that what needs to be transported gets the best methodology, which is the cheapest. It should be, like going on your looking at the circuitry of electric mechanism, which is the shortest way, which gives you the best economic advantage. That is the type of thing that should be made available to the people who want to use it. Then we'll get maximum benefit out of it. It is not that things can be just as they are. Things have to change. Otherwise, we will stay where we are. And I think this is a great time, challenging, but also great many opportunities have come up. We have knocked down a lot of things which otherwise were impediments. We are ensuring that in these challenging times we find solution to these challenges, and this should be the precursor of what we want to do in the future. Now, with this, I finish off, and I think I'll only like to in the end say that you have chosen a great theme. I'm sure the Indian Chamber of Commerce would ensure that you combine with all others to pass on what you have discussed today, and also as to what should be a roadmap. See, discussions and panel discussions are pretty good, but if you don't create a roadmap after that, it is of no use to us. That knowledge then remains in cyberspace. We need to get it down onto the table and share it with everybody so that it gets implemented. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing your views. I think it's always refreshing to hear you. And you have echoed what Honorable Prime Minister mentioned, that you cannot grow in new century with the old laws. And I think with the pragmatic approach which you have, things are changing, and ICC is truly committed to work closely with you. And just to mention that with Bangladesh and with East and Northeast, ICC has been actively pursuing, following up on the points, and we will continue to do that. Sir, we have one of our past president with us, Rudra Chatterjee. I'll request him just to make a quick remark, and then I will request Mr. Sethia for vote of thanks.
Good morning, sir. That was very, very encouraging and excellent talk. From ICC, I think the opportunities are huge. Based on the conversation, ICC can work with the government and identify the industries for which this will be most relevant. I have two examples, sir. I manufacture carpets in Mirzapur, all of which gets exported. Today, it goes by truck to JNPT. I think if it can be, and this export is more than $1 billion, most of it is going to US and number 2 to Western Europe. If we can have a plan of how to get the carpets exported by boat from the Varanasi, by the Eastern Corridor and out, we will probably catch up on time versus Vietnam, who is another competitor. The second industry is, as I was mentioning to Honorable Dr. Amita Prasad, in tea, which, I was telling her that my grandfather started a business which was started in, in those days, East Bengal and Tripura. Later we expanded into Assam, and now we are one of the largest producers of tea. But the Tripura tea, after independence, unfortunately, the cost of transport has become 20 rupees per kg. The tea is the cheapest in the country. Nobody pays 20 rupees a kg for transport. It takes 15 days. And it has actually damaged Tripura for the last 75 years. The tea is not the only product. Bamboo is another product, which nowadays, people are going and buying bamboos from Indonesia and Bali, while, the person who started that trend of bamboo furniture learned it from Tripura. And so these kind of, picking an industry, say bamboo, furniture, tea industry and carpet industry, I think with ICC, we can say, what is the cost and time that needs to be achieved to get the scale so that this can become a success. It is a great inspiration, sir, and madam before that. And on behalf of ICC, thank you, Vikash, for inviting me for this excellent session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. We also have Prashant Kumar Mishra from Odisha. Would you like to come in and make a quick remark, Mr. Mishra? Very briefly, please, as we are running late. Please unmute. Please unmute. So Mr. Mishra chairs our logistics committee, and they are planning big in terms of waterways and the port connectivity. Mr. Mishra.
Yeah, I've heard the Honorable Minister being very enlightening about the multimodal transport. Yes, as he rightly said, that what is needed today is a synergy, basically between the railways, road, and the inland water transport, because as it is, air transport is very expensive. And as it is, the railways has already transcended into multimodal transport. As it is, the railways has already transcended into multimodal transport through the container corporation. Now we have ICDs and we have also terminals. So the inland water transport, as the minister has told rightly, has to come in a big way, because that is the cheapest form of transport. So I think that this synergy is very, very important. And I think the way the government of India is going about and the way it is now taking up the national waterways, it's just a matter of time that there will be a synergy, and the railway's share of transportation in the transport sector will automatically grow from 25-30 and at the international level to somewhere around 55-60. I think that is what I thought I should say. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Sethia, may I request you for vote of thanks?
Sure. It'll be my pleasure. Honorable Minister of State, General Singh, thank you so much for your time to address us today, sir. We know that you're extremely busy, but to take the time out to discuss this topic, which is personally very close to my heart, being a logistics professional and for our chamber, I'm grateful to you, sir. What really, got me hooked was you said that things have to change. They can't be just as they are. I think that is the spirit that we need to go forward, and multimodal logistics needs leaders like you who are dynamic, who can take us to the 21st century. So thank you for your thoughts, sir. I would also like to thank Dr. Prasad, Honorable Chairman for Inland Waterways Authority of India. Wonderful work is being done under her regime. Lots of changes are coming, not only for the Indo-Bangla protocol route and the Bangladesh trade, but also opening up Pandughat, which can be used for taking cargo to Nepal, as well as domestic national highways, taking goods up to Banaras and Patna. So these are excellent steps which have been waiting for a long time. I congratulate her and her team. I would also like to thank my president, Mr. Vikas Agarwal, and congratulate him on his first event after taking over. So congratulations to you as well, Vikas. Thank you also to our sponsors, Mahindra Logistics, for sponsoring us for this event. I just wanted to add a couple of points to what has already been added. I have some background in multimodal logistics. I represent a company called Western Carriers, which is the largest multimodal logistics company in East India and one of the largest nationwide. What Dr. Singh said is that, and I agree with him, that multimodal is something which has been around for ages. Earlier, bullock carts used to bring the goods and it used to be loaded into a boat. That is multimodal. Now we have moved from that to a combination of road, rail, river, and so on and so forth. Now is the time, I feel very strongly, that the Indian multimodal business is really going to boom with the opportunities being provided in Northeast India, in Bangladesh, Nepal route through Pandughat and Guwahati, as well as to neighboring countries like Burma through Sitwe port. It's an opportunity for this business to boom. Multimodal not only for international trade, but in a combination with coastal shipping, serving from East Coast to West Coast, is seeing tremendous growth opportunities. And I want all our members to get involved in this, to be part of this growth, because I feel that the next 2 decades strongly belongs to logistics. I would also like to, I would be remiss in my duties if I did not thank the Honorable Minister for the tremendous support shown by the government during these tough times of the coronavirus. I feel, sir, and I hope you would agree, that the logistics community is also a frontline warrior in this industry, sir. We have worked straight through the lockdown. We have not closed shop even one day. And this would not have been possible without the unstinted support that we have gotten from the government, straight from day one, in which, the toll was removed, the highways were opened up for, essential services. And without this kind of support, I don't think we would have been able to deliver to this country. So thank you once again, sir, for your leadership. And today is a PRAC program. The next session, which is coming up, is going to be moderated by my friend Joydeep Da. It's talking about integrating multimodal transport at the policy bridge level. So can I request Dr. Singh to please introduce Joydeep Da? And thank you everyone for your patient hearing. Thank you.
So thank you, Minister. Thank you for joining us. Grateful to you. Thank you so much. And thank you, Dr. Prasad, for being with us and also sharing. I would now request Mr. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I would now request Mr. Joydeep Raha to please take over. Mr. Joydeep Raha, in the logistics industry, he is a known name, and ICC has been fortunate to know you and to work with you. So may I request Mr. Raha to please moderate and start the next session. Over to you, Mr. Raha. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Singh, it's been a honor really and a privilege to be in this session today and hear our Honorable Minister. Some of the most crucial impacts of our logistic industries. And it was also indeed a very nice presentation given by Mr. Prasad. I happened to had a luck to meet her and interact with her in a short session sometime back in a few years, and we did exchange a lot of ideas. So, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to everybody. I incidentally is also the president for SCLA Northeast. SCLA stands for Supply Chain Logistic Agglomerate. Now, we are focusing on Northeast because Northeast is the place which has been neglected far too long. But thanks to our government, after they have come into power, they have really focused on Northeast, and Northeast is basically a gold mine, if you ask me, both for the producing of the essential items, the agricultural produce, and also for logistics. Yes, as we speak, the logistics is a challenge right now, but there cannot be success without a challenge. You cannot achieve success without a challenge. So challenge is well accepted, and I'm sure everybody would love to have this challenge. At least Kanishka would support me, being a logistic person himself, and he knows what kind of a challenges we face, both air, sea, and water, roadways, and surface transports. So it is needless to say we are here for not to discuss the problems, but we are here to discuss certain solutions. I believe in having a solution rather than discussing problems. Now, I would like to catch up on a certain thing that I have also, in my last, session with Indian Chamber, with another business chamber, where I had categorically stated that in the inland waterways, now this inland waterways is the best that could happen to our country. Our country is known for its rivers, and we have so many rivers. The only challenge we have is the navigational routes. The routes have to be made navigational, the rivers have to be made navigational. That's the first and foremost that the government needs to look, and that's what my humble submission to the government, that make all the rivers navigable so that the vessel can operate seamlessly. That's the first thing and the foremost. And like we are talking about, our subject is multimodal. Inland waterways and the multimodal, transport systems goes hand in hand. They are like, it's the same side, other side of the coin. So one cannot survive without the other. So in multimodal and in particularly in land waterways, I heard Madam saying that it is not well known. It is still not been well propagated. Now, the reason for not being propagated is basically we need to have, I think it's my personal opinion, that we need to have an SOP of the inland waterways transport, which we, at this point of time as we speak, we don't have one. We need to have a laid down policies for it. So who are the players? The private players needs to be encouraged, and it is the private players in the private and the public joint cooperations and liaising can make this happen. And it's a great opportunity, and this opportunity should be used, should be capitalized by all, irrespective of you are a logistic operator or you are a logistic user or a consumer to the logistic services. This is something which will reduce our cost. We have to remember that our logistic cost, we are all very conscious for the past few years that our logistic cost for GDP is higher than the many countries in the world, which we need to look at it. The reason I feel that there are two schools of thought. One is that we have the cheapest labor, We have the cheapest transport systems, as far as transport charges are concerned, yet our logistic costs are high. We need to look into this. And there are a lot of factors to it. One of the factors could be our terminal operations, which at times needs to be reworked and have to be in tune with what the other international operators are doing in other countries. We need to, exactly like, do global, but do local, but think global. So there is no harm in benchmarking the global practices, because ultimately with the globalizations, we need to be at par with the rest of the world. Otherwise, we will be lagging behind in the race. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to invite our Captain Khanna, that he comes from an aviation background, to share his thoughts, please. Captain Khanna, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. This is Captain Khanna from Blue Dot Aviation. At the outset, I would like to thank ICC, and especially Jaideep, for giving me this privilege to speak to such an august audience. I do not claim to be an expert on MMT, far less Eastern India, though I have spent some part of my life in Imphal. So kindly bear with me as you hear me out. Starting for the multimodal transportation, MMT, I will just try and speak one sentence about the basic definition. When we speak about MMT, we speak about movement of goods from point A to B using different modes of transport, that we all agree. But what is often missed out is by that it also means by a single transport operator. So this aspect is something that we need to dwell upon, that do we have a large number of single transport operators who can combine the multimodal or make available multimodal transportation. In a large and diverse country like India, where end-to-end delivery is a humongous task, multimodal transportation obviously is an effective solution. And add to this the difficult terrain of Eastern India, the task becomes even more difficult. And for various companies, like I said, for various operators, multimodal transport can mean different solutions depending on their portfolio of transport. But being from the aviation industry and a pilot, I would focus on air transportation as an element of multimodal transportation. And I'd like to start by saying that Blue Dart has been pioneering the effort in multimodal transportation, albeit in surface and air transportation. I would like to quote Honorable Minister General Vijay Singh, who had stated in the last summit on MMT, and I quote, he said, there is a need to have total connectivity between various modes in less cost at a given time, unquote. For me, the key words here are less cost and the time factor. Let's first talk about the time factor. Reducing time, of course, is a basic tenet of MMT, and concepts like dedicated freight corridor and speed trucking, they reduce the surface transportation time for rail and road transportation. But the game changer to me, not just because I'm from aviation, but the game changer will always be air transportation, for the simple reason that it reduces time manifold. If you look at the terrain in the Eastern India, air cargo is the only solution that can bring down the time factor. And then there is cargo, for example, perishables, pharma, that have short shelf life and are best moved by air. Therefore, air transportation becomes an essential and compulsory instrument of MMT. And not much work had been done till recent past in developing infrastructure for the cargo aviation. Setting up of AIA class, so ably led by Mr. Keku, I think he's there, is the right step in this direction. Of course, a lot more needs to be done towards cargo aviation. Please allow me to dwell now on the cost aspect of air transportation. High logistics costs, especially of air transportation, have often been cited as one of the key roadblocks to a competitive industry. But just imagine in March 2020, when we had the lockdown, the country had less than a dozen dedicated freighter aeroplanes. Just imagine a country like India, we had less than a dozen dedicated air freighters for domestic operations to serve the supply chain of the country. All the belly space of passenger aircraft had dried up till later when passenger aircraft were allowed to operate and also the cargo on seat was allowed. As India positioned itself for an Atmanirbhar Bharat, a conducive logistic ecosystem is imperative. Air transportation has two cost elements that keep the cost high. The first one is, of course, the cost of aviation turbine fuel. This is almost 30% of the operational cost. And though the GST regime came into being in 2017, ATF still remains out of its purview till date. So here there is an aspect where we need policy intervention. Further to that, the input credit also remains disallowed. So it is well known that the industry has been requesting for relief on this account for a long time. And through this forum, I would once again request the government to look at related policies and bring support to the aviation industry. The second aspect is the airport costs. Mr. Kiku, while airports being managed by Airport Authority of India have reasonable costs, the privatization of airport has increased airport costs prohibitively. There is no gainsaying that private airport operators need to make profits, but this needs to be amortized over a longer period to bring the cost down and see that the aviation industry does not bleed. Therefore, policy intervention is necessary to try to keep the costs down. Talking about Eastern India, there are initiatives like the Krishi Udaan, whereby the government has agreed to give 50% subsidy for carriage of agri products, fisheries, horticulture, and other related products. This perhaps can be extended to the whole of the country to bring down the costs and support efficient transportation of perishables. The Honorable Minister also spoke about the hub. So when we look at cities like Dubai, we see an efficient role model of MMT. It's a city that does not produce, but it's a hub with excellent MMT facilities. And India needs to emulate that and select one such city which can be developed as a hub for MMT. A city so chosen that the manufacturing hub and the exporting hub can be connected seamlessly. No gainsaying the fact that use of technology and digitalization needs to be given an impetus in MMT like in any other field. We are all aware that in a short time from now, we will be required to transport huge quantities of corona vaccine, domestically and internationally. MMT would be the need of the hour in doing so. I just want to mention here that Blue Dart is already working with pharma and life science companies in this effort. We have 8 pharma grade conditioning rooms at 8 strategic locations like Mumbai, Chennai, Hyderabad, Ahmedabad, Pune, Calcutta, Delhi, Bangalore. These rooms are at close proximity to our airport stations, which decreases turnaround time and aids in the speedy delivery. Blue Dart also has operational experience and specialized infrastructure required for handling biomedical shipments. We understand the criticality of the shipment and have specialized life science solution experts with us. A lot of background work has been done in terms of the capacity requirements, materials of packaging, availability of data loggers, insulated shippers, walk-in cold rooms, coolant, network reach, manpower preparedness, technology investment to handle requirement in this direction. I would also add that we have taken care of the temperature control logistics and the challenges in transporting vaccines at different temperatures while providing temperature stability from 48 to 96 hours. So gentlemen, that's my take as far as air transportation as an element of MMT is concerned. And I see that we have exciting times ahead of us. Thanks, Jaydeep, once again for allowing me to speak. Thank you very much.
I'd like to invite and call upon Mr. Keku Gazdar, CEO iClass. He is one of the most key factor today's multimodal transport, because as a terminal operator having more than 30 airports controlling the cargo operations, it's one of the most crucial area of transportation and logistics industry. And without a terminal, you cannot think of logistics. So I would now request, begin my request to Keku to briefly, touch upon what is the preparedness of iClass in terms of handling vaccine logistics this time, because that is the thing that the world is looking after this vaccine, and we have been talking about this vaccine. So that the time has come now. I'm sure a lot of preparedness. I mean, I have witnessed to some of their preparedness, at least in their Calcutta terminal here, and therefore, Keku plays a very important role. Over to you, Keku.
Thank you, Jaydeep, for having me here. Thank you, ICC, for the opportunity to be present. It's an honor and a pleasure to address the Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and a big salute to the efforts that you have made in the Eastern region to promote trade, industry, logistics, and commerce. What I want to do in the next probably 5 to 7 minutes is touch upon two key aspects of transportation. One is for the vaccine movement, and one is for the movement of the perishables, both which are very, very crucial in the times we live in. I want to take you back for a moment on what happened in phase one of the lockdown. As you probably know, a lot of you would remember March 25th for the lockdowns that began in the country. And what the industry, and I use the word industry in a broader sense of the word logistics industry, did was to ensure that not a single terminal closed. I refer to the air cargo terminal here. Not a single air terminal closed even for a moment. Primarily for one and only one reason was to ensure that the movement of the PPEs, the testing kits, the reagents, etc., were not hampered. Number two, we also ensure that all materials that are required, okay, in terms of even exports, continue to go. In a sense, the plan was to ensure that the wheels of trade continued to move. Kudos to the entire logistics federation who stood hand to hand, shoulder to shoulder to get this done. Be it forwarders, be it customs house agents, be it logistics professionals, be it even organizations like the police, etc., all played a very critical role in this. Now, why am I starting my talk based on this is to set a context of what we expect to happen in the next, let's say, month and a half when we start the movement of vaccines. The difference between the first phase and what we're going to do now is we've got time to plan. In phase one, we did not have the luxury of time. Here, we do have some luxury of time. On the other side, there are some differences that will take place. In the phase one lockdown, we were completely unaware of the magnitude of the issue that we have on hand. Magnitude meaning the direction, the spread, etc. Here we know what kind of vaccines will be coming, what are the temperatures that they will be coming in, and how this is going to be done. Let me zero in on what are the capacities that are going to be available for, especially to the Northeast region. Let me start with Kolkata. So in Kolkata and in Guwahati, we've got dedicated chambers that will be holding these pharma. Currently, they are holding general perishables, but they will be converted into holding pharma, especially the vaccines. And should there be a requirement for additional capacities to be provided at the airport, external refrigerated vans will be made available. Now, the plan as we want to happen is that we do not want the vaccines to remain at our terminals. What we plan to do is to ensure that the movement from aircraft to truck or truck to aircraft is continuous. Continuous meaning it does not stop anywhere. And that's the whole purpose why the vaccine movement is very, very critical. As all of you probably know, in the history of air transportation, and may I say the history of any form of transportation, the vaccine movement will witness something that has never ever been done in probably any lifetime so far. And hopefully, I don't think it should happen anytime again. So we want to be ahead of the growth curve. Always good to plan, always good to have the information on what we want to do in advance. So I'm going to go into a little bit of specifics just for material information to this group. One is that the commodities, the vaccines will come in probably three different categories of temperature, which is uh, +2 to +8. Then you have -20 and -70. -70 vaccines are not going to be manufactured. So far in India, most of them will come into 2 to 8, for which there are capacities available across the country. Most of the major airports, Delhi, Bombay, Hyderabad, Bangalore, Chennai, etc., all have facilities that are available for handling these vaccines. And as you probably also read in various media, the movement of vaccines has already commenced, although in small quantities, both coming into and out of the country. In order to have a very seamless movement of these vaccines, what is very important would be the maintenance of the cold chain facility or the temperatures that are required. Now, temperatures that are required to chill the vaccines or to keep the vaccines cool, there are only two methods. A is an active solution, B is a passive solution. Now, with these solutions, you either have the option of using dry ice, which is a solid form of carbon dioxide, and gel packs, which are chemically induced cool packs that keep the vaccines chilled. Now, both of these have a specific lifeline. So it will be very important that when the boxes are coming, and in my limited understanding so far, Northeast and East would be more of recipients of the vaccine than producers of the vaccine. So, with that assumption in mind, it will be very critical for all the colleagues in this panel to please understand that the terminals are to be used for expeditious and immediate clearance of the vaccines when they come. I would strongly urge colleagues to please ensure that when the vaccines are planned to arrive at the terminal, they should be in the terminal within. Sorry, the truck should be in the terminal even before the aircraft lands. So this is something called the last mile connectivity that I am very, very keen to ensure that there is no hitch. If at all there's a requirement to even have a green corridor from airport to delivery center, that is something that needs to be worked out in advance. The phase one of the lockdown taught us something very, very important, and that was how are we going to be completely digitized? So what we wanted to do for many years in terms of digitization of our processes and our activities, and for all the wrong reasons did not go through. Overnight, the virus made us adapt to it. I'm a very, very big proponent of digitization and digitalization. And I'm very happy that as a positive fallout, and I'm choosing my words very carefully, as a positive fallout of this event that took place, today we are more connected, we are more real time, we are exchanging data on these systems at a much faster and on a much real time basis. One other point that is very, very important to us is the need for continuous stakeholder consultations with all. As probably all of my colleagues in this event know, there is still a lot of unknowns in the movement of vaccines, and it's only with continuous information exchange that we would be able to better prepare ourselves. And every day there is new information coming out in terms of packing, in terms of temperature, in terms of last mile connectivity, etc. I want to conclude just with the following. One, this is not going to be an event or an exercise that is going to involve just few of us. Is going to involve all of us. So the more we share information on various platforms, especially as the one that we have today, the more and better informed that we're going to be. Number two, the faster we get information from suppliers or delivery agents on the movement of the vaccines, the better and faster you will be able to have terminal management in place. One other point that is going to be a little critical and that's going to play a vital role is that India has always transported vaccines. This is not the first time we've moved vaccines. So let's not go on the panic mode and say that this has not been done before, etc. We are the largest immunization country in the world. We make a huge amount of vaccines in the world, so it's not new. What is different only this time is that the magnitude of the immunization for the COVID is going to be, like I said, a size that has never been done before. So I'm very positive. I am also quite happy with the arrangements that we have so far. To say that we have done everything we can, no, we haven't. We still have things to do, but I believe we are on the right track. I just want to briefly touch upon the Krishi Udan that my good friend Captain Khanna mentioned, and I want to make this clear. The original plan for Krishi Udan was on 41 products, and I'm happy to state now that it is moved from 41 products to all products. What does this give you? 50% discount on the freight charge. So that is the first incentive that has been given. The second incentive that is given is 50% on the TSP, which is the terminal storage and processing fee at the origin airport. And third, there also is a scheme of a 50% incentive given from the first mile, that is ex-farm gate to the airport. I really, using this medium, would like to ask all our colleagues here, please promote this. This is an excellent initiative by the government of India to promote agriculture, to promote our farmers, to promote businesses in the agri-trade, and help us get this scheme a very positive outcome so that we work even further to incentivize the community. With this, I thank you, and I thank your time given to me. Thank you, Jaydeep. Thank you, ICC, for this. Jaydeep, if you don't mind, I have to exit for another VC right now. So if there is a question, I don't mind taking now. Otherwise, please permit me to exit. Jaydeep, you're on mute.
Thank you very much for being here with us and sparing your valuable time. I know how busy you have been of late, that I even don't get to speak to you even for 2 minutes during the daytime. We only speak at night post 10 o'clock, perhaps. So I know how busy you have been. I will not going to hold you, but yes, before you leave and before, I must say and I must admit and I want to put it on record that an appreciation that you have been doing in this area, that kind of drastic change you have brought in to all the airport cargo terminals in the eastern India, including Guwahati, including Bhubaneswar, Bagdogra, and others. That the excellent work that you have done and your team, and kudos to you and your team once again, and thank you very much from our side. Thank you very much, Keiko, for being with us. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jaydeep. Thank you. Bye.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, my next speaker would be Swati Sinha. She is from the Railways, and Swati is an IRS, and she would talk about and share her inputs and her thought process on the railways role on the multimodal, which is again another very important, crucial transportation mode of India. And incidentally, Indian Railways is one of the largest railways in the world. Therefore, it's very crucial for us, and the railway plays a very major role in EXIM industry as well. As you all know, the Concorde plays a very important role, and so is the railways for carrying various materials, including the army materials as well for the armed forces. With this, I would like to request Swati to take over. Over to you, Swati.
Honorable Minister for Road Transportation and Highways, General VK Singh, fellow participants in today's e-conference, and officials of the Indian Chambers of Commerce, Kolkata. I feel very privileged and honored to be a part of this conference. And a special thanks to Mr. Jaydeep Raha and Ms. Paromita Bhaumik Chaki for enabling my participation. Although I'm an IRTS officer with 20 years of experience, I have never worked for Concorde. Let me outline my experience first. Actually, my first stint in the first 4 years in the railways were spent in West Bengal at Eastern Railway. So I was at Asansol overseeing coaching operations, and I was managing punctuality of trains. Then I went to Sealdah division, where I was handling international export between India and Bangladesh. Thereafter, I moved to Central Railway Mumbai, where I was mainly developing electronic and digital solutions for passenger convenience like smart card ticketing and e-payment and other applications. And I was briefly senior DSO Bombay division, where I was overseeing the safety of train operations, both passenger and freight operations in the Western Ghats. And I was procuring safety equipments for Central Railway, etc. So this has been my work experience, and I would like to say that for India to achieve Atmanirbhar status of a 5 trillion US dollar economy by 2025, it is essential for it to attain excellence, self-reliance, and professionalism in the field of integrated multimodal transport and logistics. Any integrated multimodal transportation policy should basically address the following features: total connectivity between various modes in less cost and in a given time, importance of connecting the manufacturing hub and the exporting hub, along with making the transportation between them cheaper, and digitization of these processes. It is essential for the national multimodal plan to focus upon the infrastructure, as also is there a need for unified documentation and a move away from paper-based documentation to electronic documentation across all modes of transport. There is a special need for more stress to reduce the cost at the borders. The multimodality based exports at the economic corridors will facilitate the special economic zones. According to the Integrated National Logistics Plan contained within the draft National Logistics Policy of the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, dated 30th July 2020, the logistics sector in India at present is rather inefficient, unprofessional, and disorganized, consequenting in very high logistics costs to the tune of 30% of the GDP in 2018. If we have to improve our logistics infrastructure to achieve our Atmanirbhar status, we need to improve the connectivity between the various modes of transport like rail, road, air, and waterways, reduce paperwork, embrace digitalization, and adopt single window clearance and standardization of procedures. The key challenges to this aspiration are posed by the fragmented and unorganized nature of the logistics sector, a very complex regulatory environment, made more so by the divergent norms adopted by the various stakeholders, poor asset utilization, and problem of first and last mile connectivity. The vision of the national logistics policy is to build a modern, efficient, and resilient logistics sector that seamlessly integrates transportation for faster, cheaper, and safer logistics by leveraging the best in class technology, processes, and skilled manpower in order to significantly improve the country's logistics performance and reduce costs. The key objectives of this policy are integration of multimodal transportation infrastructure, optimal usage of the interconnected multimodal logistics infrastructure, standardization of processes, upgradation of the physical assets, uniformity and standardization of terminology, ease of documentation, and digitalization in the multimodal transportation sector. The government is already looking at creating a unique identity number for all the logistics services providers for a start. Thus, we see how the policy bridge has been designed to integrate multimodal transportation in India for boosting our revenues to trade and commerce. In order to sustain our economic growth, which has already received a setback from the pandemic corona, it is essential that the government executes in right earnest its integrated multimodal logistics policy, which is presently on paper. With these words, I close my address and invite the next speaker to enlighten us on the subject. Thank you.
It's really a pleasure to have you on board with us in this session. Uh, with this, we are talking about policy, ladies and gentlemen. And when we are talking about policy, we still lack something which, Swati also highlighted it to some extent, and so is even including Honorable Minister General Vijay Singh, that we lack a particular policy, that we still don't have a one single transport document for a multimodal, real-term multimodal transport. Now, this one single document which will be issued to the shipper at the origin point, say, for example, from, say, at Dhubri, and move all the way to, say, to Felixstowe, by various mode of transport from inland waterways, catching up with the surface transport, maybe all the way to JNPT, and from there to again by air, to Delhi by, and then an airlift under one document. We still don't have that. Many European countries have this mode of document, which is highly beneficial to the user, because right now we use fragmented transport document. For railways, there is a railway receipt, RR, and then for the transport, there is an LR. Then for the for the air freight, there is an airway bill, and so on and so forth. And for the and in fact, for the inland waterways, in my opinion, I don't think we have a bill of lading which can be issued by an operator to the I mean, when I mean an operator, means here I mean a freight forwarder. If he is going to use a surface inland waterways, he does not have a document which can be used for inland waterways. So this is where something which should merge with the, we have coastal shipping, we have a multimodal, which is the MTO bill of lading. The MTO bill of lading is basically an ocean kind of, it acts as an ocean bill of lading, which is issued by a freight forwarder or an MTO operator. And you have house airway bill, which is again issued by an IATA agent. And you have master airway bill, which is issued by a carrier. And similarly, you have a master PL, which has been issued by again with a shipping line. So we have a fragmented document, transport document, and we must also have one single terminal document, which means a document which is been issued by the terminal operator or by the customs. So here is something which we need to look at, and this is some policy that needs to be advocated to the ministry, that why don't we have one single document covering all mode of transport under that one single document. Will travel, the shipment will travel under that one single document with a one single policies and an SOP. Now that's very important. And also the insurance of the cargo, the transit insurance of the cargo. We do not have a multimodal transit insurance as on date as we speak. So it's very important that we have a laid down multimodal transport insurance policy in place. We have a laid down multimodal transport document in place. We have a laid down multimodal transport system SOP, which would include coastal shipping, which will include railways, which will include surface transport, which will include air cargo, and of course the sea cargo. There's one single document, one single policy needs to be in place and needs to be there in implemented as soon as possible, because otherwise we will not be able to integrate all this different mode of transport and make it a real-time multimodal transportation system of our country. Because today our country is a very large country. We have a lot of rivers. Our rivers are, some of them are non-navigable, so navigation and the dredging is very much required. Presently, we are facing a problem with the Calcutta port having a very low draft, resulting in enormous delays and erratic sailing schedules of the feeder vessels. So this needs to be looked into and very on a war footing, because this is a big impediment to our EXIM logistics business. And I would also request that, Madam Prasad, that if somehow the dredging operations is taken up very aggressively by the government, and this dredging, the navigational routes are very, very important. The patrolling of the vessel is very important. The security of it is very important, and the joint servicing of the vessel midstream in the inland waterways is needs to be looked into, which is a servicing and the crew changing. And if there can be a floating, some sort of like we call it a transloader, a vessel which basically transloads from one vessel to the another vessel. So we must have some sort of like this, where we can have a servicing bay midstream and a service bay midstream, and also have a since the map that is being shown by Madam Prasad is very, very encouraging, that we want to cross through the Bangladesh, our neighboring countries, and in that case we must have a joint patrolling, and the custom procedure by both the countries should be in sync. Now, this custom procedure not being in sync is one of the biggest challenge. Now, one of the biggest challenge that we face today is our Customs Act of 1962. That's a very old act. I think it's a time when it's a digital world now, practically, when the government is professing digitalization so heavily, that the custom rules needs to be in sync with the digitalization systems of our country, and needs to, this act of 1962, Customs Act of 1962, needs to be relooked and reworked. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank everybody, and I think we have come to an end of our session. If any of the participants have any questions to the panelists or to the speakers, they may please ask through the chat mode, and I'm sure Swati will put forward to each one of them. Over to you, Swati.
I would like to ask basically Madam Amita Prasad what she has to say on the draft national logistics policy.
Parobita, you are on a mute. Please unmute yourself.
Okay. Madam Prasad had to leave. She is not at the moment with us, though she shows logged in. Swati Madam, we'll pass your question to her, and she is not logged in at the moment, actually.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. So there has been, I can see, Mr. Raha, there in the chat box, there is a question from Mr. Rajiv Bhatia. He says, for integrated policies, it is essential for, basically it's a comment. It's essential for the center and state to work in conjunction, well noted. The concept of the organized development of wayside amenities for highways and roadways is what we look for. So there are a host of other questions also. Maybe we'll take it up to the panelist offline as well. Because I'll just take another, Mr. Raha, can you see on the screen some questions, which I think is from, again, Pramod Srivastava, President, NACFS. Let me just check what is written. Oh, so there is, what it says is CFS and ICD should be allowed to handle IWI cargo for international border in their facility. So these are basically some observations which are coming in. I think we will have it compiled.
Very valid
Yes, very, very
observation
good.
of Mr. Srivastava.
Yes, yes. So there are a few more. I think we'll combine, sir, and basically a lot of observations which has been left in and very valid ones. I think we are running little late in our time, and the next speakers for the next sessions are also on board. Having said that, I'm indeed grateful to the panel, to all the panelists who has joined us, and our very own Mr. Jaideep Raha, who has a huge experience behind him, a 35 years experience and so many credentials. You know, he's the chairman and MD of Jetex Ocean Air Private Limited, the MD of Jet Trans, and what do I tell you? 35 years, and he holds a lot of. He's the president of SCLA Northeast, and a huge lot of experience behind him. Thank you, sir, for sparing your valuable time with us and sharing this wonderful session. It has been very enticing. And I would also like to thank all other panelists who have been here today. Ms. Swati Sinha, she is a bureaucrat and she has done wonderful work during this pandemic times. I read many of her articles. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us. Captain I.K. Khanna, Senior Vice President, Flight Operations, Blue Dart Aviation. Thank you, sir, for being with us here today. And nonetheless, Mr. Gazar, who has actually left for his other engagement, but thank you very much for joining us. So with this, we come to the end of the first business session, and we have the panelist for the other business session who has also joined us. This session will be chaired by Mr. Girish V.S., who is the Executive Director of ISCM, and again, he's a research scholar. He has done wonderful work on, on finance and risk management, and he is associated as a faculty for over 30 years now. So, Mr. Girish, I would request you to please, put your video on if possible, and then to also welcome all the other panelists who are here with us today. I hand over the proceedings to Mr. Girish. Welcome, Mr. Girish.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Aramita. And I also thank the Indian Chamber of Commerce for putting up a very nice event on multimodal logistics. I would like to first off start by inviting the panelists who are participating today. First off, I would like to invite Mr. Rampraveen Swaminathan, who is the CEO of Mahindra Logistics. Sir, if you could have you.
Yes. Yes, Girish, I'm here.
Thank you, sir. As I'm calling out, I would request all of you also to switch on your video so that we can all see you on the bar, and we can have a feeling of togetherness rather than talking to a screen. Yeah. My second panelist would be Harry Lagarde.
Hi.
Can I have you on?
I have started my video.
I think we can see you. We can see.
Yeah. I would like to now also invite APR from Varuna Integrated Logistics, Group Director. Hey, Harry. APR, can we have you?
I think APR is just logging in. He's just sent a text. He'll be here very soon. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Can I then invite Shantanu Bhattkar? Hi, sir. Namaskar.
Namaskar. Nice to be here.
Thank you very much, sir, for making time out for this session on resilience in our supply chain and logistics network. This is one area which at least one of the positive fallouts for the supply chain domain from the COVID has been that resilience has become the talk of the town. It's almost on all everyone's mind today. We are talking about how can we create a supply chain which can work better during disruptions, and how it can probably come back to a better position than we were in as far as after a disruption. The function of resilience is essentially from that point of view. When we talk of a resilient supply chain, we are talking of something which, yes?
Hello?
Yes? Hello? Yes, Paramita, I can. Hello?
No, Mr. Girish, carry on. It's okay, please.
Yeah, okay. Sorry. Okay. Sorry for that. So essentially what we are today trying to, and and I should thank the Indian Chamber of Commerce for having chosen such a subject, which is very relevant, very topical, and something that occupies almost all our efforts over the last 9 months. If anything that we have done, we have tried to keep the operations moving with minimal disruptions to our customers, to our consumers. And I should say that we should indeed pat ourselves on the backs for a wonderful job done as far as creating that resilience in our supply chain is concerned. What we have today is that we will try and explore a few facets of resilience, right from exploring what is the current status of the supply chain and then getting down into some of the nitty-gritties of what we need to explore. In fact, I was hearing the Honorable Minister also speak and the previous speakers also speaking about the kind of challenges that we face when it comes to moving of goods from one part of the country to other through multiple modes of transport. Since this is a multimodal conference also, we need to bring in some. And one of the bigger challenges that they have pointed out has been that there is no single document that can be used across the modes. And there's no single document, which essentially means that our process is not dovetailed. What I would like to probably start off with is to talk about the vulnerabilities of the logistics and supply chain in India. And also, how can we look at it in terms of disruptions and what are the learnings for India? If I could invite, again, it's in no particular order. If I could invite first Harry to start the process.
Thank you, Girish. So yes, thank you for that question about resilience and disruption. And I guess everybody on this panel and everyone on this conference today are very familiar with the word of disruption. We in India must have seen it God knows, thousands of times. Whether it is if you are traveling by an aircraft and you face the turbulence, which is disruption, or whether you are, in the logistics industry, or whether you are in any other industry, you are subject to various kinds of disruption. It could be a one-day hartal, it could be a road blockage, it could be floods, it could be anything else. But those are temporary disruptions, and those temporary disruptions don't cause too much of an economic damage. Yes, there are times when floods are there, which can cause an economic damage. It's limited to a part of India or a part of an economy. It's not globally effective. Whereas a disruption to the tune of what has happened today in COVID, that's a global pandemic. That's a global disruption. It has disrupted lives, it has disrupted families, it has disrupted industry and economy. And no one in the world was ever prepared for it. So I guess the bottom line is, how do we, as an industry, learn from this and understand how do we protect ourselves and prepare ourselves to be well prepared for the next pandemic or the next global disruption that is definitely bound to come. I think that is my thought.
Thank you, Harry. If I could now invite Ram Praveen to talk about his perspective when it comes to what are the challenges that we see in creating resilience in our supply chains. That could be probably a starting point where we could look at it.
Yeah. So good morning, everyone, and of course, fellow panelists and Girish, of course, and I want to thank the Chamber for setting up this conference. Much spoken about and much to learn in this space still. I think if you look at the subject of resilience, and we work with a lot of companies as a logistics service provider, I think traditionally supply chains are designed for three principal elements. You design it for speed, you design it for cost, you design it for agility, and sustainability and risk. And in a more conventional view, I think the dominant tendency is to design it for agility, speed, and cost. And I would say in India, there's been always a large weightage towards the cost element of your supply chain. Despite the fact that we add our direct and indirect cost, logistics is still a very large part of GDP. I think over a period of time, the importance of sustainability and risk has grown. But what we've seen with the pandemic is that risk is no longer just one more element. I think it really is intrinsic to each of these four elements. And so one has to look at how you manage your agility and speed and cost efficiency and probably sustainability that's important for you, bearing risk in all these facets, at a fundamental design level. There is no doubt that I think post the pandemic, supply chains have been significantly stressed. The world, is more connected than it has ever been before. Whether you look at even countries like Japan or the US, right, or even China, I think trade flows today are much more global than they ever have been. Yeah, and therefore there have been significant risks coming out of the pandemic. In the beginning, I think things was really about saying, how do I clear my shop floor? Now I've got inventory with me. How do I convert inventory into production in the best possible way? But I think as time has passed, I think the global fragility of supply chains has become more and more obvious. We work with auto OEMs, for example, today who are struggling, with microprocessor availability because of a change in some other geography in the world post-COVID. Or European component plant shuts down, and then you have a significant reduction in availability in a plant in South India. You have similar challenges in electronics and several other areas. So I think supply chains are very significantly stressed across the world, and the fragility of it, Girish, I think has become very obvious, obviously, to all of us who work in the industry. Yes. I think Harry mentioned that in his comments as well. And what we are seeing, I think, for companies as they work through this is really four big elements of areas where you need to work on. The first one, I think, is actually redesigning your supply chain or reconfiguring your supply chain with the right balance. As I said, many companies tend to design their supply chain around a high weightage of cost. And I think we are now seeing a lot more investment around agility, not just speed, but actually redesigning your supply chain to be a lot more agile. The second one actually is diversifying your supply chain. And I think this is globally, it's something which a lot of companies are working on. It's in some ways an opportunity for India because we are seeing that big fillip to Atmanirbhar India or kind of a Make in India sort of initiatives on the recipient side if we kind of crack things together. But diversification of supply chain is just really critical. Companies are looking at saying, how do I actually build the right balance in the way my supply chain is designed, right, and kind of de-risk my business, not just optimize for one lever. The third big thing, of course, is just getting logistics efficiency up. And this is where I think for India, there's a very significant opportunity and risk. If we are going to, we have to learn to become much better about moving in India. And building logistics efficiency and driving multimodal capabilities from a logistics perspective, I think is really critical. I'll touch a little bit more about that in a minute. And the fourth thing is just digitization and technology. I think if you are going to build a resilient supply chain, you have to also build a much more transparent and visible supply chain. And technology is actually at the core of it. So as we work with companies, I think what we see is organizations trying to invest in these four pillars, right? Redesigning supply chains, diversifying supply chain, risk, try to fundamentally get much more efficient about the way they manage their logistics performance, and kind of really leveraging digitization and technology at a far greater level. And I think those are the things which organizations have to get a much better balance about as they look at saying, how do we make their supply chains more resilient? I think multimodal logistics is very critical to that, Girish, but obviously in the interest of time, we can come back to that later on as well. But that's what we are at least seeing as you work with our customers and partners on how they are looking at building resilient supply chains. With that, I'll hand it back to the chair. I think, Girish, you're on mute.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Yeah, that did bring out the nuances of how we need to relook at our supply chains to create the new normal. If I could invite Shantanu at this point in time. Shantanu, I want to take off from where Ram Praveen touched upon when he talked about creating an efficient supply chain, when he talked about efficiency. If I were to ask you, how do I measure this for the logistics industry specifically and across the multiple modes, if you can throw some light on that?
Well, of course, if you can't measure something, you can't control. There are two measures which are universally adopted. One is logistics perform index of the country, and second is the logistics cost to GDP ratio. However, this measurement is a mixture of apples and oranges with cabbages and carrots and with salt and spices. And then if you want to control the taste, it's very difficult. If you really want to measure, I think we will have to segmentalize and look for every single element of it and have a kind of surgical operation to treat each system. Like in calculus, like most of the people have science background, in calculus, even when you deal with major integration, we first have to differentiate and take it to the lowest differentiation, that is the smallest equation of variable, and then deal with each variable and then integrate the whole thing together. You can't do everything with a shotgun method. Now, logistics performance index of Singapore, which is a landlocked, which is an island nation, and India, you can't compare. Similarly, if you come to the logistics cost to GDP ratio, America's major exports are software, arms, and Boeing, which is aircraft. If you compare the cost of their manufacturing, it is very expensive. Weight or volume has not been part of it. I would not say that it is a wrong, but I am just saying it is inadequate to measure in this manner. Similarly, when we take what are the ingredients, now there is no unanimity about what are the ingredients. Now, what constitutes the cost of logistics is wastage. 30% waste of vegetables and fruits is also included in cost of logistics. Now, if you compare that with containerized transport, it won't be even 1 million part of it or wastage. It also factors the interest cost of carrying the inventory. So many things that are covered here, I think we can improve provided we have a very segmented and focused, and in each area we will have to achieve small gains and build on that. I think perhaps I have given some overview of way forward, and for that I think what earlier panelists said, multimodalism is important, but what is important is to have seamless multimodal. Legal multimodalism is still available, but our infrastructure doesn't provide for seamless multimodal. Maybe if time permits, I will dwell on it in details. But as of now, I think I'll make my piece at this and give back to you, Girish.
Yeah, it is indeed true that we need a seamless integration across different modes of transport, and that itself creates risks within the supply chain, which sometimes we are not really focused on. And that's if we need to reduce the contribution of logistics to GDP, we need to focus on the ways. APR, I would like to ask you a slightly different question. So there are two aspects which define our ability to survive. One is the time to survive, which is essentially how long does it take for us to come back to normal. And the other is the time of disruption. How long will the disruption last? As long as the time to survive is shorter than the time of disruption, we are able to handle that whole process. What do you think we should be doing to ensure survival when we are faced with such long periods of disruptions? APR? Is APR in?
Hi, Girish. Actually,
hi, APR.
For some reason, I was not able to hear you completely. Hi. You were breaking off in between. I don't know whether that's network or whether it's your net. For me, please.
Sure. You see, there are two aspects when it comes to resilience. One is the time it takes for us to recover, and the second is the time of the disruption itself. As long as recovery period is shorter than the time of disruption, we can come back quickly and we can become more resilient. If the recovery period exceeds disruption, then we have serious consequences. What do you think we should be doing as organizations which can reduce our time of survival?
Thanks for the question, Girish. The best way for me to answer this, fellow panelists, rather than me trying to assume or perceive what can be done, because I guess all of the people in the industry are all knowledgeable enough. Everyone has their own experiences, and in terms of even their intellect, right? So everyone is intelligent out there. Everyone is innovative out there, right?
Yes, yes.
During these bad times, which will sort of give everyone an idea into what really needs to be done, in terms of getting back on track and reduce time of recovery. Yeah. For an organization like ours, Varuna Group of Companies, we have had not a single day off during the entire pandemic. Yeah. So even the day when lockdown was announced, we were operating. Yeah. Our warehouses were operating, our trucks were operating, everything was operating. Right. Albeit it was operating with a lot of challenges, which all other people also went, right? Be able to operate, and that is one question. If I ask myself, or if anyone asks me, you would get an answer in terms of how that whole recovery mode works. And the second part of that exercise would also be for everyone to know that if I was doing X revenue pre-pandemic, let's say end of March, I'm doing 2x consistently for the last months. So that will also give you a quick idea into how that recovery thing happened, within Varuna Group. So the most important aspect in that recovery exercise, I would call it, is ownership. Yeah, most important exercise is ownership, leading by example. Yeah. And here, while they may sound like soft skills, but believe me, that is what actually drove us, and that is what got us all the results. So if we can lead by example, which we all have read and heard so many times, lead by example, lead by example. But if you really lead by example, your entire team falls in line. And even you can even make out the bad apples from the lot. Yeah, for people who cannot align and cannot adapt to such situations of a global pandemic, a national pandemic. So leading by example becomes very important. Played a massive role during this entire time of pandemic, because staying connected was the only solution we had. Trucks could ply, warehouses could operate, but could not travel otherwise. People were not able to travel. So if there is any problem, you are trying to solve that problem remotely through phone calls or through your video conferences, etc. So it became very important for us to realize or adapt more to technology. Though we are a very highly technology enabled organization, this taught us that many other things can also be done through technology. It also made us realize that risk mitigation is so very important. Yeah, for all our customers, we started analyzing what their risks were, which was limited to supply chains that we were operating for them, not the entire risk elements. And then planning, which again is a function of supply chain, where you and me have had numerous discussions on this. ISCM has done numerous things on this subject. Yeah, demand driven planning and planning on the whole. So all of this, what is said with this time, So were we able to plan well? How quickly were we able to plan? Were we on our toes? Were we out there? Were we like the rest of maybe, rather than generalizing, I would say most of them were so scared that they were, locked up inside their houses, saying that what do we do? But that is the time when you have to wake up. It is actually a wake-up call. That is the time when the business needs you. That is the time when the manufacturing industries need you. You have to ensure that products are reaching out there in the market. Otherwise, there would be a different pandemic. When you don't have supplies in the market. Yeah, that's a completely different situation, right? You're not hoarding, but you can't reach the market. You don't want hunger to become another national issue, right? So all of this was possible only because we had a good network throughout the country. We had people. We invested in good people. We invested in people who were willing to take that risk they were taking precautions, but they were willing to be there, because you can't operate a warehouse without people. Yeah, even if we are all working towards great automation, but ultimately you need people. Yeah, we've still not reached there. So leading by example, people practices, investing in the right kind of people, daily interactions with people, keeping their motivation levels high, ensuring that you're working very closely with your customers to understand what they are, because now we're talking about daily supply chain issues. You're not talking about a plan for the month, you're not planning for the quarter, but you're planning.
Yeah.
Right. So
yes,
working in line
yeah,
with all manufacturers and planning for the day and executing for the day. So that level of granularity, that level of specificity, you should be able to pull that off. And that is when your turnaround or your recovery period is going to be shorter, because this is the time when when manufacturers, customers, they would realize who really is the mighty and the trusted, right?
yes,
Who
yes, yes.
can they rely on for the supply chain needs? Yeah, is it just a brand name? Is it just some relationships that you have, or is it really there on the ground, right?
Yes,
So
yes,
so
yes.
I think soft skills, I would say, played a major role. Teams played a major role. Team management played a major role.
APR will
Technology
come to that. APR will come to those issues. We'll come to those issues because I have a follow-up question on technology and people. I will come to those issues. Meanwhile, could I?
Sure, Girish.
You made some very valid observations there in terms of the various pieces that needs to fit in together. One of the things that needs is also to look at your supply base and rationalize your supply base, because that becomes a large source of resilience for you. If you're, there have been during the pandemic, when I was speaking to heads of supply chain of user organizations, a lot of them were in a serious problem because their suppliers could not supply. Either they were located in an area of disruption, or to a large extent, it was for people from China and single country exposure. Those kind of issues became very crucial in this particular aspect. Harry, if I could invite you to speak on, to give your views on Atmanirbhar from the point of resilience. We have heard a lot of speakers today on Atmanirbhar. The Prime Minister has been talking about it. A lot of people have caught the bull by the tail, but by the horns rather. I would rather want to look at it as a positive point in terms of how Atmanirbhar can help us improve our resilience. And the flip side of it also is that for something like Atmanirbhar to work, we need India Inc. to invest hugely in capacities of global scale. That is something that we have not yet seen in this country, except one or two cases. I would like you to probably speak on those aspects.
Sure. Atmanirbhar, while it sounds amazing, and that is definitely our,
APR. This is for APR. Just a moment. This was for Harry. I'll come back to you. This was Harry.
I missed that.
Yeah.
Not a problem, APR. Thank you. So yes, Mr. Girish, that is a very, very relevant question that not only India has been asking, but I guess many countries and many organizations that we work with across Asia Pacific right now have been contemplating, thinking. Some of them are making their moves, some of them are redesigning their networks, looking at alternative sites, alternative countries, bases, etc. But the bigger question that arises is which country is really prepared? And I can give you an example of a company that we recently did work with. It's in the consumer goods industry. As you know, consumer goods is probably one of the areas where any country can set up a good manufacturing base. For instance, if you are manufacturing fridges or washing machines or even air conditioners, these are basic consumer goods that I don't think has a heavy dependency on too much of technology, right? So shifting base for such consumer goods from, say, China to other parts of the world has been a key discussion point, and the brands that we worked with on this did look at India, did look at Vietnam, as well as Thailand, to see whether these were the countries where they could relocate some of the products that they manufacture. And one of the big asks that came out was, yes, India has got the people, India has got the skills, India has got the infrastructure, which is still developing, but yes, it has got the infrastructure, and it has got pretty much the support of the government, the agencies, etc., to ensure that companies wanting to come into India are able to do this. But the biggest issue that came up was on one small item of these consumer products, and that is compressors. I don't know if people on this call today understand to the degree with which these consumer brands look at a commodity just like compressors. We all know that there are good manufacturers of compressors within India, and there are known brands within India that manufacture compressors. But compressors for the use in the consumer goods, that requires a special type of compressor. That became the key point of discussion and differentiator. And people then decided that it's probably better to go to Vietnam to get that set up, because they found that the cost of manufacturing a compressor base in Vietnam was much better and much cheaper than India, for instance. Even though India has got the technology, the engineering knowledge, it has got all the levels of skills that are required. The reason for that was very simple. The reason was that the government of Vietnam has given so much of support and swaps to the industries that are coming in, that literally it is a matter of days by which a company can decide to set up and start putting up their infrastructure to do the manufacturing. And that is the key differentiator. The reason why China is so successful today, and a number of companies have given their desire to move out, to do de-risk from China because of what has been happening, not only because of the trade wars, but because also of the pandemic and the long supply chains, etc. There has been one key thing, which is, does the government believe in co-investing to the magnitude that is required? And I guess that is the key point that I think we need to address. One is the desire for an entrepreneur to invest his own, and then along with that, the desire of the government to support a magnitude of investments so that that industry becomes the key manufacturing base within the country. And I think this is one key aspect that we have seen. The second thing that has not been very what I would say very good for the economic decision making for many brands in India today has been the fact as what gets out into the press today. There has been very recently in the electronic industry a case that in the south of India, for instance, that has caused a lot of concern. There has been the current situations where the management of the reforms that are taking place in the agricultural side, that has become a key question mark. So these issues which keep on coming up might be well related to smaller matters which could easily be addressed, but they need to be addressed quickly. They need to be given the right press so that it is looked at in the right spirit by international agencies, international economies, and it is then reflected back by how quickly the government acts on it. I guess these are the key things that we are seeing. But for India to do this, it requires huge amount of investment, both from an investor as well as from the government. It requires us to address some of these key issues so people have and companies have the ability to trust and enter into the country. Definitely, a lot of people will always say, "Oh, we have Amazon, we have Flipkart, we have all these big brands that have come in." They have only come in because of the fact that we have a 1.3 billion people that are available for them to access. It is not for their desire, other than the fact that they find this a lucrative market in which they can thrive, right? But
Yes.
Our objective of Atmanirbhar is not just to look after ourselves, but to create industries that can look after the supply for the world. And I think this is the key point that we need to look at.
Yeah, thank you, Harry. It was indeed it was an interesting set of observations you had on the investment and the public-private government participation that requires to drive the whole process forward. Ram Praveen, if I can invite you for your comments on one aspect of it. The biggest problem in India has been that supply chains have been looked at from a cost perspective. Everything was cost. And it's also that they have a target on them to reduce cost by X%. Resilience doesn't come cheap. Resilience means investing in your systems, processes, capabilities to create that kind of capabilities within your supply chains. You have been working, you also are looking at being a very successful 4PL in the country. Now, I want you to focus on probably two aspects of it. One of them is that how do we build that elephant in the room, which is essentially the cost element, and how do we have a conversation which is not related to cost, but related to efficiencies, related to resilience, and B, what is it that you can do for people? Because resilience requires better capability in people. If you could just combine the two in your observations.
Girish, it is addressed to me.
It's to Ram Praveen, sir.
Okay.
It is Ram Praveen.
Thanks, Girish. So I would say that you're right. I think there has been a dominant element of cost, I think, in the way people think about logistics and supply chains. And I think that's a very good reason. We are, it's a tough economy to work in. Value propositions are hard to create. And I know that's true for all industries, including our own, which is logistics. It's kind of really challenging. Let me try and talk about this in two parts. The first one, I think increasingly customers recognize that there is a need for balance. I also feel that technology now provides you an opportunity to do a lot of this without actually adding cost. I think there has been probably a belief at times that we put more processes, put more capability, diversify or de-risk our supply chains, that will increase our cost. But I think increasingly technology and pace at which it's moving does allow you to pick it back somewhere else at a total cost of ownership level. Now, it does not say that you can de-risk everything. There are volumes and economies of scale which do play out, especially in the manufacturing sector. And I think Harry had his example of compressors as an example, where I think there are geographic advantages, there are volume advantages which will play out. But there are ways to mitigate that and build the right amount of balance in your supply chain. I think technology is a very important part of it. I think a lot of our customers on the inbound side, which is on the incoming side, in terms of material supply, component supply, are doing similar things. They are looking at diversifying their supplier base. Right, is one thing. I think they're trying to obviously bring supply chains a lot more closer. And I think they're trying to lean their supply chain by building a lot more analytics and transparency into it. Right, so that's one thing. I think on the fulfillment side, which is the way you support customers, I think the challenge is a lot of the opportunities really around how you densify your network and how you improve the efficiency of it. So typically, if you're a company which has got 80 days of inventory in the system, right? Can you create an end-to-end solution which actually leans the inventory substantially? So you may be investing a little bit more on the cost of your supply chain services, but your total cost of ownership on the outbound side might actually come down. So I would say that there are different techniques which are admissible and permissible across the board. Technology, in our mind, is extremely critical. But I think the opportunities do exist. There's a lot more. I think one of the things which happened in the pandemic is a lot of people realize that they're not able to fulfill demand. Right. So it's great to have a great cost position, but it doesn't help if you don't have sales, right? So I think there's far greater sensitivity to it. Where I think we don't have, where I think a lot of open answers is how do you improve. One big lever for cost efficiency is getting much more multimodal. So how do we get much more multimodal? And I'm sure Shantanu, I think, will have a lot of insights on that. And the second thing is how do you actually orchestrate global supply chains a lot better? One thing which we are seeing across the board is a lot more companies are looking at end-to-end solutions. Where people are coming and saying, listen, this is my total cost of my supply chain. Can you actually make it more agile, but also save me cost? And I think there are many cases where we've been able to do that. And we were working with we are in the process, for example, of moving a large consumer durables company and exiting them. We are taking managing the entire supply chain for them going forward. And we are doing that by building lower replenishment lead times and actually reducing their cost over a period of time. So it is possible. It requires a lot of capability. So that's one thing which I would say. I think on the second question, which you referred to, which is around people, let me just talk about ourselves, because I think it's, so the logistics industry is an industry where obviously talent is in challenge. And what we've done is, and I think, and as Abhishek or I think the APR mentioned, it's an industry which never really went down. I think we went down to come back up in 24 hours, right? So we've had to do several things. I think from a short-term perspective, what we're investing on is reskilling in a big way, right? We are investing in, in taking care of our ecosystem. So that's not just employees on roll, that's third-party contractors, it's business partners, it's business partner employees on safety. We launched a bunch of community support programs. To take care of drivers and their families, getting food into their homes if they were stranded on the roads. So we did a bunch of stuff around hygiene and skill, in the short term, right? I think the longer term things have been around, building diversity of talent, really tech enabling the organization a lot more. I mean, we are fairly automated as an organization as well, but the challenge is how do you put technology as your first lens? Right, and not as the last enabler, right? So building a technological bandwidth in the organization is a very big investment we are making, and at a leadership level. I think skilling people, to be actually more general managers. I think that's been a very important thing which we've been trying to do at the top 2-3 levels of the company, is to reduce functional bias and encourage people to appreciate risk and take a more cross-functional perspective. But let me stop there. I think I'm sure other panelists will also, Girish, have great things to add in that respect. Yes.
Shantanu, if I could invite you, one of the, today what all of us in the industry are fighting against is this critical issue of container shortages. This is something which is pushed freight rates, 3 times, 4 times. I hear even 10 times above normal levels. This is becoming very critical for even creating a throughput which is smooth. What are your views on how can we handle such challenges?
Yeah, thanks, Girish. We spoke about Atmanirbhar. If there is one area where Atmanirbhar is critical, is this area. As a government or as a nation, we have treated energy or oil as a strategic area. But we have not treated exim cargo as a strategic area. I think it's a time to review, and we have been representing about it. India, with its 7,500 kilometer coastline, how many container ships India owns for international flight? Nothing. I think SC has 1 charter vessel. They have 5 vessels which have been grounded. So we are a country without any ownership of container ships. What is your ability and what is the government's ability to deal with these situations? Today, all top lines are from Europe, and their governments silently have backed them and supported them, and they have a dominating position. No Indians buy ship in India. Those who buy start company in Singapore and Dubai buy. So buying ship in India should be made deliberately. Second, owning of container is equally critical. It is not just the space is in shortage. The containers are in shortage. You create oligopolies, then you face the music. And this would have happened even without the pandemic, because there was a big consolidation in the industry leading to limited players operating in the field. I am not making allegation of cartelization. The number of players are so few that pre-market competition is not into operation. So one critical decision if government has to take, SCI may be privatized or not, it should be extremely profitable to have Indian flag and Indian owned ships and Indian containers. I think if this one message is strong, and I am not promise on cost. See, resilience doesn't come cheap, is what you yourself said, but it will have the availability of containers. You will have assurance of space, and we will have a scenario where both our manufacturers and our ability to cater to our foreign market stays intact. So I believe this is one critical lesson we should take. And we are talking about supply chain resilience from Fukushima incident. So that's about 10 years back. It was 2011. Once it gets over, I think we as private sector, you as academics and government, we relax and go back to day-to-day work. I believe this is a time where we have to really work on ensuring Indian shipping capacity. You can't be a great nation or a global power and not have container shipping. I think that makes a strong point in various sectors. It's less about cost and it's more about your ability to do something. Thanks. I think I have made my case on this.
Thank you very much, Shantanu. It was interesting. It is indeed a major challenge that as a global economy, aspiring to be a global economy, we do not have container ships to move our goods out. And neither do we have containers now. APR, if I could invite you on a couple of issues which I would like you to probably look at. Today we are facing a couple of major issues. One is that there is a demand and supply volatility which is creating uncertainties. Second is the supply bases which were established are sometimes on, sometimes off. We went from China to Europe, and then Europe went into lockdown, and again it is going back into lockdown. So there are these disruptions which are happening. At the same time, as 3PL players, you also have a very crucial element of trying to bring all these things together into one common platform. How do you look at the role of a good 3PL when it comes to resilience, and what do you think that you could do so that you could give that assurance to people that you are able to take care of these challenges? APR? I think APR has. Harry, if I can take that question to you then.
I can take the question. You just need to just refresh me a little bit, and then I can answer it.
Essentially, 3PLs, are at the core of resilience, and they are the people who make it happen. What do you see is your role, or 3PL's role in creating resilience across the network, and that how could you give the confidence to the shippers that they are in safe hands?
I think you just have to look at what is happening across the border today to understand that the 3PLs are all there waiting to take the key commodities to stock up the shelves of the supermarkets and keep the supply chain moving. I think the commitment from the 3PLs has never been more than what we see today. The issue has always been border closures, political obstacles, unclear directions on the restrictions that have been imposed by various state and government levels everywhere else, not just in India. I'm just talking generally across the world. The unclarity about the testing regimes, etc., which are the ones which impede and stop a 3PL from actually performing its duty in terms of their infrastructure, in terms of their people, in terms of their preparedness to reach out and put resources on the line. I don't think anyone has stopped. You can take that from an Amazon delivery to grofers to whichever urban or last mile delivery that is required. People have responded, and people continue to respond even in spite of having all the restrictions. I think it is more important that the government and the relevant bodies come out with a clear-cut direction so that these logistics companies can perform their duties and ensure that the key ingredients which are required to continue supply to the economies are maintained. I think that is the message here. I don't think that the 3PLs would ever default. It is their business. They are ready to do it.
Thank you, Harry. It was interesting. Abhishek, if I could bring you in on where we stopped when you were talking. One of the key challenges in resilience is visibility. And visibility also means free flow of information across the entire network, which would include two elements of it. One is technology, and second is ability of people to use that data to make decisions. Where do you see this happening? Do you think the ecosystem today is good enough for the free flow of information, or what do you think we need to do to enhance it?
So thanks, Girish. So see, I think first of all, the ecosystem is still developing. Yeah, it's not there where it should. I think all of us are aware of it. Just about a month ago, government mandated e-invoices or e-bills. So yeah, I think it's a continuous process as far as the government is concerned. In fact, even partners and customers, there's a huge disconnect in terms of being on a common platform. Some are on, there are multiple ERPs. The customer ERPs are not connected with partner ERPs for free flow of information. So technically, if you look at it again, it's quite an effect of how people work in silos, right? So Varuna Group would have its own control tower, etc. Every information would be available. But if you talk about, say, another service partner who has 1,000 trucks and maybe 100 warehouses, might not have as competitive or as similar a platform as, let's say, a Varuna Group, and maybe someone else would have nothing, or maybe someone would be on some cloud network, so some software off the shelf, So one part is that, in terms of free flow of information, first is that partners and customers are not connected, and partners who have it, again, there are different types. So there's too much of, I would say, different information that people are looking at. When we talk about standardized information, there's certain elements which are pretty standard in terms of track and trace, what is leaving when and what is reaching by when, right? So that's a pretty standard kit that everyone would have. But if you look at the industry of, let's say, freight forwarding, industry of freight forwarding has a common platform where all ships and entire cargo can be tracked, right? Which is not the case as far as transportation and logistics in the country is concerned. Warehousing, as you know, the government is now working on a national portal, which with a few of us and Deloitte's and some other knowledge banks as well, wherein they're trying to standardize again, by way of an information providing portal. So it is evolving, but we are not anywhere near, frankly speaking. And if you look at the third element, which is the most crucial element, that we now have the technology, or even as it is evolving, we have to make use of the data points or the information that it is throwing out at us. That information, if not analyzed well, if not put to use, was an utter waste of everybody's time and energy and money. Right? Why was that technology put in the first place if you are not able to mine that information, right? So again, most of this is in-house in every organization, as I see. But if the industry can look at, I mean, talk about of the world, can look at incorporating such trainings wherein not only ERP based, but mostly, let's say, control tower based trainings, which can allow a lot of white collared, blue collared workforce to move to white collared jobs. So I think at that level, at the lowest level within the supply chain resource pool, if we can that started, then I definitely see a huge talent pool available. I think that is also the need of the hour. Like if you recollect, say about a dozen years ago, we had the ITIs.
Yes.
And the ITIs run by the government, but this could be privately run or whichever way. But I would definitely be game in being a part of this from an organization and as well as an individual perspective, both, where we create that talent pool of people who can put data to use, of people who can understand that information, of people who can understand why what is being done, right? So it does not have to all come down to or narrow down to a manager or a president or a managing director, that look, this is the information, and it's a lot of interventions at senior levels. So I think that is something that is definitely required.
Thanks,
We're
API.
Yeah.
In fact, I have one question from a member of the audience, and he has asked Michael. He has asked, when will we start looking at our competitors as partners to deliver seamless service across the globe? If any one of you could take that up. Are we going to see competition as also our partners to deliver seamless services?
I will add two lines here, and then others from the panel can add their views. So this has to work from a top-down approach, right? So some of our customers, some of my colleagues who are head of supply chains, they do this. They have a balanced scorecard for all partners, and they are measuring service partners on similar parameters. Right? That is where competition becomes interesting, because then you're all working together towards common goal. Right? So if I say that Delhi to Bangalore, I would be reaching on the third day at a speed of 500 kilometers per day, which is an average of, let's say, 35 kilometers an hour, and not not fast and furious 10 or 11 in terms of the franchisee, but I'm safe, right? So then that parameter of transit time allows companies to plan well, and consistencies can be built in. I believe then that kind of competition is healthy competition. That kind of competition is actually helping you become better, right? So that it has to come from a top-down approach, and other customers should also start incorporating the idea of not looking at price points, but looking at deliverables.
here. Would anyone else want to come in on that?
Well, competition in logistics sector has been quite normal because it's such a vast field. Nobody can do everything. We are, as an association, now working on competition to see if we can have a common pool of containers or making availability of vessels in one manner or other. This will be a new initiative. Otherwise, two competitors working together, nobody in the world, no matter how big they are globally present. And you can't have a business associate from a different field to work in your field. So essentially, you pick up a competent partner, and he is obviously a competitor. So in this sector, it is not uncommon, but I think it needs to be institutionalized, and there are some efforts which we are trying to do for having a common user facility, common carrier facility. It's in infancy, but one of the biggest area for competition, as they call it, cooperation and competition, would be National Logistics Portal. The industry itself should take ownership of the National Logistics Portal, or at least the part of which their sector has to plug in. So I believe it's a good dialogue to go ahead with. Thank you. I have completed.
Thank you, Shantanu. Harry, would you like to be heard on that?
Yes, sure. I mean, look, the other speakers have covered this quite well. Every company today needs to look at how they can enhance their capabilities by working in close partnership with their competitors. Competitors are not necessarily there to take away your business. Competitors can sometimes even complement or even enhance your business. But it has to have the right leadership, which is approaching this with the right open-mindedness and the ability to have proper transparency. I think those are the key things, good leadership, transparencies, good processes, and two companies can work together and create a better supply chain for their customers. No doubt about it.
Thank you, Harry. It was indeed a fantastic discussion, and I thank all my panelists for having expressed their views so clinically on a wide aspect, a wide range of subjects. In fact, resilience itself is such a vast subject that it's not that each aspect of it can be spun off as a discussion point. However, there are some common themes that I would like to pick up and weave together as a story for us to conclude. Essentially, what we are talking about is that the first requirement for resilience is a commitment from the top management, the topmost management in the firm. Unfortunately, there was some survey conducted some 6 months back in the US where only I think 44% of top management were rated resilience as top priority for the year that was there. Which, according to me, is in a very low number as far as top management, the priority for the top management is concerned. I think it's time that we move resilience up the ladder and make it a boardroom discussion in almost all aspects of our operations. You could have the best product, but if the best product does not reach the right customer, the second best product will become the best. You are no more in business. So essentially what we are running as supply chain is one of the most crucial access to market operations. And that will define the future of the corporate, whether it likes it or not. And therefore, having that access, having that seamless access and unbreakable access to markets, both from the supply side and the demand side, is going to be the hallmark of firms going forward. And I think that's something that's going to be at the core of our strategy when we look at it. In fact, we can bring down this discussion into 5 major areas that we spoke about. So we spoke about vulnerability, assessing. We started with assessing the vulnerability of our supply chain. What are the bottlenecks in the supply chain? What kind of visibility do we have towards those bottlenecks? And quite often, it is now emerging that the bottlenecks could be in the third tier, fourth tier, or the fifth tier of your supply chain. But having visibility into that bottleneck gives you an option to kind of avoid the disruptions due to those bottlenecks. And therefore, vulnerability assessment becomes the core of any supply chain resilience program. Everything from demand shock, sensing demand, all of them require you to assess what is happening in the marketplace in a very real-time basis. The second one is the management culture that I spoke about. Very few of the top management have still talked about keeping resilience as a high priority area for them across industries. That's not in India, it's in the US. We would definitely love to do a survey in India, and in fact, we are planning one from the Institute of Supply Chain Management. As an institute, we are focused on education, training, and research in the areas of supply chain. And I will be coming to many of you to speak about resilience and the resilience practices as a part of our ongoing ongoing efforts to create a body of knowledge based in India. The third issue that we have in terms of, and which we did speak about in terms of resilience, is to de-risk our supply base. Quite often I have heard this story even in India where there was a disruption in China, therefore we moved to vendor in the Europe, only to realize later on that the vendor in Europe was also relying on a vendor in China. So you're back to square one when it comes to this circular loop. How do we actually diversify our supply base to create resilience in our supply chain? How do we create Atmanirbhar Bharat? What is it that we can do towards doing it in a very effective manner? What kind of investments are required? What kind of government initiatives are required? Fortunately for us, today we are, at least from the ease of doing business, in a much better place. From the logistics performance index, we still have a lot of ground to cover. I would rather want to focus on the logistics performance index of the domestic rather than international one. A lot of attention is given to international, but domestic is what will concern all of us operating within the country. There are some bottlenecks there. We will need to address those bottlenecks. Those becomes crucial for us. And the final pillar that we have to create a resilient logistics and operation is essentially free flow of information across the supply chain. Unfortunately, we still cannot claim to be having that kind of free flow of information. There are bottlenecks to flow of information. We believe in a culture where bad news does not travel because we feel that transmitting bad news is not good, and therefore we will only pass on the good news. But as far as resilience is concerned, it is the bad news that needs to travel faster and more forward than good news. Good news is what we are all paid to do. Bad news is what we are paid to avoid. So therefore, we need to focus a lot more on how this information flow can be smoothed out. There are pockets of our operators who are not capable of handling that kind of information. So it's up to us as larger players to create probably an APR or a Varuna or a Mahindra Logistic to create that ecosystem where even that single trucker can form a part of the digital supply chains that we are talking about. Unless that comes up, we will see resilience in bits and pieces. We need an overarching commitment to create resilience in a supply chain, not just what we are operating. We need to look at it entirely from the raw material to the consumer. The entire chain of people who are involved have to be taken under our own umbrella and nurtured. Some of us are capable. We are larger organizations. They are capable of doing an assessment, a vulnerability assessment. These organizations need to extend it down the tiers of the supply chain, probably to the 25th tier of the supply chain, and create resilience. That is when resilience would be felt in the Indian supply chains. I wish for such resilient supply chain to take place in India also. As a researcher and educationist, we are also focusing on resilience as what can we do to create awareness of resilience across the various tiers, including the last mile, last man on the job. One of the problems that we also have is that if we create a unit to head resilience, then the general perception is that, okay, we have a unit that is looking at risk, let them handle the risk. So we will do what we want. We need to change that mindset. In fact, if anyone can prevent, you can improve your resilience, it is the last man on the job, the man on the front line. It is his or her role to bring in resilience into the system. If that person fails, then everything within the organization also fails. So therefore, risk and resilience is not something that is to be given to a department and said, you handle it. It is all our jobs to be risk and resilient favorable and to create that environment. I thank all my panelists, Harry, Shantanu, APR, and Ram Praveen, for having spent your time and contributed this. I also thank Paramita for organizing this event. Thank you, Paramita. Over to you.
Can I have 15 seconds?
Sure, sir. Sure.
Yeah. See, I've been participating in several webinars because I'm active in several associations. One appeal I make to Paramita and the Indian Chamber. Take one point. We have compiled several points, and let it be actionable. Helping hands are better than praying lips. We can talk on academics endlessly. We have brilliant researchers like Girish. Please take one point, and I can promise you, the people over here have ability to deliver, and we have ability to get other organizations to support your initiative. We are all active in several governmental, non-governmental association, chamber. We are active. Please take one initiative of what is discussed, and let it not remain only to discussion. So that's one humble request, and thanks for this opportunity, and thanks for allowing me this interjection. Thanks again. Namaskar.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bhatkamkar. That was actually a very, very valid point. And we assure you that we will definitely do what you said. And of course, we will seek your support, Amtoy's support, and in taking this forward. On behalf of the Indian Chamber of Commerce, I would like to thank each and every speaker, distinguished dignitaries who have spared their valuable time to be here with us the whole morning. I would like to thank Mr. Girish for making this session a very exciting one. We actually did a lot of groundwork before we actually formalized this program, and we sought suggestions from all of you, and we definitely will compile, we'll definitely come up with some actionable points like you rightly said, and at least try to see that one of it matures and it goes to where it should be. So having said that, I am indeed grateful to Mr. Ram Praveen Swaminathan, CEO and MD Mahindra Logistics, and for joining us. Mr. Harry Lagarde, who has always been with us. Today he is joining us from Australia, and he is ahead of us 5.5 hours. Thank you, Mr. Lagarde, for always being with us. APR, in spite of traveling, he has just, I think, landed this morning, but nevertheless, he connected. Thank you, APR, for joining us. Of course, Amtoy, National President, Mr. Shantanu, thank you, sir, for being with us, and all the support that you and your secretariat had. We had wonderful participation this morning. The number of participants were many, and as the session ends now, we still have close to 100 people who are there, who are logged in. But thank you so much. And with these words, and of course, with the proceedings of what we have today, will come up, sent to each one of you. Thank you once again. I would like to thank all the participants, the friends from the media who are covering this session, our social media contacts, everyone. Thank you very much. Indeed grateful to Mahindra Logistics for supporting this event, without whom we would not have been able to do this. Having said that, thanks each one of you, and look forward to another exciting session very soon. Thank you so much. With these words, we break off for today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.